Welcome to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. My name is Teresa MacLennan. I'm Executive Director of the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. We are so glad that our viewers have joined us today. As you know, the goal of our show is to talk about the lives and experiences of women. We talk about human trafficking. We talk about women in business. We talk about gender inequity. And we talk about violence in relation to a feminist perspective and the experiences of women. And so we're very, very thankful that our viewers come alongside us for these conversations. And we hope that this is an opportunity where we would educate, inform, and challenge ourselves in our thinking. Before we begin, we do want to acknowledge our Indigenous community. We thank you for this space. We thank you for our knowledge shares, your culture, your history. And we're very appreciative that we are allowed the opportunity to have these conversations. So we thank you. I am really looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have today with a wonderful woman in our community, Josephine. And we're going to be talking about, an experience of abuse. And just, we want that to be an encouragement and a hope to other women who are watching today. We also want to remind our viewers that as we talk about experiences of violence and abuse, to be mindful of your own wellness. Please recognize if any conversation that we might be having may be difficult for you to listen to. It may be triggering to your own experience. Please take a step back. Just know that we're with you. We think about women in our community always, and we want you to be well. So Josephine, welcome. I am honored that you wanted to be in this space with me today and to share your story. I'm just very, very appreciative of that. Would you like to tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you for having me today. I'm honored to be here with you, sharing my story. So my name is Josephine, and I am a very busy mom of 5 young children, ranging in ages from 6 to 15. I'm also a teacher and a student. I'm back at school as well.
Wow, a mom of 5.
Yes.
I'm tired just hearing that number. I think that's, and then adding a teacher on top of it, my goodness, right?
Yes.
So you are a busy, busy woman. And you know what? You are a professional woman. You are an educated woman. You are a woman leader in terms of your teaching in our community, and a woman leader in terms of raising 5 children.
Thank you. Yes.
All of that being said, what it brings to me is that any woman in our community, regardless of education, regardless of what her life looks like, can be a survivor of abuse. And so I just really appreciate that you share those pieces about yourself, because there could be any one of those kinds of women who are watching today who think, that's not me,
Right.
But it very well could be them. And so I'm just very thankful for that. And so what I'm also very thankful for is that we understand the bravery that it takes for any woman to share pieces of her life with us, pieces of her story to help other women. And I understand that that is your purpose of wanting really to tell your story today. So maybe you could share with our viewers your personal experience of abuse in terms of whatever you feel comfortable in wanting to share.
For sure, for sure. I think my story starts off like many 20-year-old young women. I was full of dreams and ambitions. I was in university studying to be a teacher, and I met my now ex-husband. And he was different from the beginning. He was different than the other men that I had met. He didn't have any friends. He didn't get along with his family. And I had a great big family and a very extensive network of friends. So I thought, if we love on him, then I saw good qualities in him. If I love on him and they love on him, maybe he'll change. Because I did see good qualities in him. Unfortunately, at 20, I didn't see the red flags. Looking back now, Teresa, there were red flags from the beginning. There was abusive tendencies from the beginning. Nonetheless, I kept going, and I thought that things were going to get better and change. And they didn't. It only just got progressively worse over time. We got married a few years later and started a family right away. And unfortunately, abuse just escalated. Things got progressively worse and very quickly. And I'm talking all forms of abuse. There was physical, there was mental, there was emotional, there was financial, there was sexual and spiritual abuse. And unfortunately, the abuse wasn't just targeted towards me, it was also targeted towards my 5 children as well. Everyone asks, what was that moment that I decided to leave this abusive home? What was that moment? What was the catalyst for me? In 2015, my ex-husband gave my son a bloody nose. And I promised my children that day that we would have a peaceful home. And Teresa, I didn't know at that time what that looked like. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know how to go about that. The only thing I could do at that time was go to the family doctor. You know, we lived in secrecy and isolation. And no one knew. No one knew the extent of what was going on behind our closed doors. So I went to the family doctor and she had said, you know, reach out to the women's shelter. But again, she didn't know the extent of the abuse. And I thought if my ex-husband would get anger management classes and counseling, we went for couples counseling, things would get better. Unfortunately, they didn't. I found out shortly after that incident with the bloody nose that he was using cocaine. And we separated for a bit. And he assured me that things were going to be different. He was going to come back home. I found out I was pregnant with my 5th baby, and things were going to be different this time. He was going to change. He went to the family doctor and promised me and the doctor that this time it was different. And I believed him. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to save the marriage. I wanted my kids to have a good dad. And we worked together for a bit. And he was on a wait list to see a psychologist. And things were good for a bit, that honeymoon sweet spot. And then in 2016, things just nosedived. I could see the ripple effects on the kids. I could see what was happening. I could really see, it's almost like my eyes opened up in 2015, 2016, what he was doing to the children. And 3 days before my scheduled C-section with my last baby is when I called the women's shelter. The most difficult phone call I've ever had to make in my life. The best call I could have ever made as well. And that's when everything changed, and very, very quickly.
Yeah. So, you know, I think maybe there's so much to unpack.
Yes.
In your experience. There's so many layers, and I know that there's women watching right now who are saying, that sounds like what I'm living in. And you are an educated woman. Do you think it's safe to say that, I mean, as women, and we engage in a relationship with someone who we love, yes, and they have good points, they yes, have good pieces of their personality, right?
Yes.
That part of the challenge for women to face that it is actually an abusive relationship is a feeling that the relationship failed. I love this person at one point in my life. They're the father of my children.
Yes.
Like thinking about all the factors that the story that's going on in your head about how this can't be abuse.
Yeah.
Did you have that negative story happening for you that you just didn't want to think that maybe what it was actually, no, it just can't be?
That's interesting that you say that, because that's how I spent the 10-year duration of my marriage. I knew it was bad, but I didn't think it was that bad.
Yeah.
And I knew what abuse was. Like you said, I was an educated woman. I knew abuse, but I couldn't correlate. I didn't make that connection that I was in an abusive home. I was being abused. My children are being abused. I couldn't make that connection. For the longest time, people would say you're a victim of violence. The police saying you're a victim of domestic abuse. And I'm going, no, I know I'm not. Again, I knew it was bad. I didn't realize how bad. And it's not until I got out of the relationship and out of the marriage, I took a step back and I did some fantastic workshops with the women's shelter. And everything, it's almost like the goggles just came off and you could see things clearly, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. And we hear that from women all the time. And we get calls from women to our crisis line who want to talk about what they're living in and experiencing. And we're saying that that's an abusive relationship. And it's very hard for them to let that message sink in.
Right.
There's a disbelief because I don't want to believe it. I don't want, and then we hear all of the same things like, maybe I'm just blowing this out of proportion. Maybe how I'm viewing it is not correct, right? Did you have those same thoughts where that self-doubt about
over and over? Yes. Yeah. And one thing looking back now, family and friends who were trying to help at the time didn't know the extent of the abuse.
Yeah.
So if I would go to them and say, well, I'm having problems, but I didn't tell them, I was being hurt at home or the extent of what was going on. So they could easily say to me, well, you have 5 children with this man, salvage the relationship, salvage your marriage, go for counseling. They didn't know the extent, right? Not to fault them. I just wasn't honest and clear with what was going on either.
Yeah. And, we can talk about all of the reasons that women feel that they can't leave their abusive partner. And one of the key ones is that they don't have support of a community around them, of family and friends, neighbors, and that they stay together for the sake of the kids.
Yes.
And what role did that play with the kids for you to question or maybe delay seeking out support?
Teresa, for me, if I would have stayed another 10, 20, 30 years for the abuse that I endured, because I really wanted my kids to have that nuclear family, the mom and the dad together. But it wasn't until I realized what he was doing to my kids and the effects on the children. One, by them seeing how he was abusing me and how he was abusive towards them as well. That's when I realized that this problem was bigger than me and I really needed help.
I am so appreciative of this conversation, Josephine. It's incredibly brave, and I respect your voice so much because I know that there are women who watch our show and they learn a lot, and they need to be able to see their life and their experiences in other women who are telling their story. So we're going to take a bit of a commercial break right now. Again, we encourage our viewers to be well. Think about your experience, your own personal experience, and if this conversation is triggering for you. And you know that you can always reach out to our shelter crisis line if you need support. That number again is 728-2544. We always want our community to be safe, especially women, if you're having an experience of abuse and violence. So we're going to take a short break. We're going to welcome Josephine back, and we're going to dive more into her own experience. And we really hope that this is an encouraging conversation for anyone who might be listening right now. Stay with us and we'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
What kind of show do you want to see on Rogers TV? What interests you? Log on to rogerstv.com, fill out a show proposal, and tell us about your segment idea. We want to know what you want to see. Rogers TV, only on Rogers.
Welcome back to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. We're having a really insightful conversation with Josephine today, who's sharing her experience of abuse and violence with her partner that she was with. And Josephine shared with us that she's also the mom of 5 children. And so Josephine bravely has shared her story with us, and we encourage and hope that women find that bravery within themselves to do that at any time, because we want to spread hope and encourage hope for other women that might be listening today. So Josephine, I want to take a little bit of a step back. And you mentioned that you had contacted our shelter to seek out some support or had some questions. Walk us through what happened when you made that call.
That was probably the biggest call of my life. I was very nervous because I was admitting in that moment that I had a big problem and I needed help. And I was terrified of the response. And I'm going to tell you that I was blown away. The person on the other end was just so kind and considerate and listened. I'm going to get emotional.
And that's okay. It's an incredibly emotional story and journey. And I, as the ED, I'm certainly happy to hear that you were met with compassion, from the woman on the other end of the line. Like, we always want to hear that. And because we do understand how incredibly difficult it is for women to make that call, because you almost don't want to hear the answer, which is, yeah, this is abuse. And so what are we going to do about that? And we have an understanding that it can take women like 7 to 9 times to actually be able to leave their abuser. And we have no judgment about that. And it's important that I say that, because if there's a woman who's watching today and makes the call and decides to stay with her abusive partner, we understand that. We don't have judgment about that. And we want you to keep on calling us. We want to continue to have the conversations. So when you're ready, we're here to support you. So Josephine, when you spoke to that person, what happened from there? What were you offered? What did that look like?
Well, this was the Friday. I had my scheduled C-section on Monday. And so I had called the women's shelter on Friday. And things happened very quickly. They were very kind. They told me about services. They also encouraged me to make the call to CAS, which I did, which was another very difficult phone call. I had my son on the Monday. CAS came in and things happened very quickly. I had someone from the shelter come to visit me at the hospital. And I felt like they were right there from the beginning. Everything that I needed, help with the police, help with investigation, help with legal and court support. They walked alongside me every step of the way. Resources for my kids, programs for myself and for the children, support groups. There was an extensive, and I had no idea that there was such extensive amount of resources and supports available. But again, I was in a very overwhelming moment. I had just had a baby, the marriage is ending. I had police involved, CAS involved. We had to leave our home, emergency evacuation. My kids had to go live with my parents. I was in isolation at the hospital. So it was a very dark and scary time. And I had this wonderful group of people helping. And again, Teresa, it wasn't just one area that they helped with. They helped with everything, anything that I didn't even know existed, support that I didn't even know that I needed. They were there for me and offering suggestions of, what I could do next. Or, I didn't know that there was legal support. I didn't even know about contacting a lawyer at that time, what that looked like. When I tell you they were there every step of the way, they were there every step of the way for me and my children.
I'm so glad to hear that, because we want to try and reduce barriers for women to get the help that they need. And if we ever create barriers, how do we support women to be free of violence and abuse, and create a new outlook and future for their children too?
Right.
Because we want to break that cycle of violence. And so I cannot believe everything that you had going on at that moment of time in your life. And what it speaks to for me is your resilience to be able to move through that. Yes, we walk alongside women. Yes, we're here to support and help and offer our aid, but the strength and the courage comes from you. And we take your direction. And so there's an incredible resiliency within you, Josephine, that carried you through. And so I think I want to move to talking to you now about that healing journey, because we know how difficult, oh boy, how difficult it is for women to heal. And we have women involved in our outreach and our counseling services, our court support for years, because we just have an understanding about how that healing journey can take such a long time. So how has that looked for you?
Just back to what you had just said about the journey. There was someone very special from the shelter. She was one of the court support workers, had said to me, Josephine, we don't walk the journey for you. We will walk beside you. And they did. Healing for me, it was multi-leveled. I suffered all different types of abuse. So my body needed to heal on different levels. Physically, my body needed to feel strong. I started going to the gym. I started working out. I started exercising. I learned through a wonderful support group the importance of self-care. I had no idea what self-care was. I learned to love my body and what that meant, finding comfort and peace inside of me and what that looked like for me. So I started exercising, got my endorphins pumping, and felt strong on the outside. I love reading, and it sounds crazy, but my ex-husband didn't allow me to read books when we were together. And I picked up a lot of self-help books. I read the Bible. I read Bible verses, anything that was going to give me comfort and peace. So reading was part of my healing journey. Financial as well. My ex-husband, he had full control of bank accounts and money. If I wanted to go to the grocery store, I would have to call him, and he would put in the exact amount of money. I'd have to calculate everything in my grocery cart, and he would put in that amount in the bank account, and I would take the money out. So having financial freedom, healing in that sense of going to the grocery store and buying what I wanted, and like little things like that. Journaling was a big one for me as well. I learned through the women's shelter the importance of journaling and getting my feelings out on paper. That helped me as well. I had a great journal that I would write Bible verses and inspirational quotes. So on my darkest days, I would pull out that book, and that helped me immensely as well. And then spiritual healing was a big one for me. My ex-husband was not supportive of me going to church. He would make fun of me. And so going back to church and being with this great group of people who would pray with me and for me and send me encouraging Bible verses in the mornings, my soul needed to be healed as well. So I needed to be healed. My mind needed to be healed. My body needed to be healed.
It's a real reconnection with self, and a reconnection with who you are, who you always were, and a reconnection with the pieces of you that weren't allowed to be.
Yes.
Would you say that's pretty accurate, that you're really coming back to yourself and who your vision of who you are and what you always wanted to be was always there, but perhaps it had been stifled for so long?
I had to rediscover myself.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to love myself. I had lost me, who I was. So that was a huge part of my healing journey of rediscovering myself. I made a decision right in the beginning if I wanted this divorce to make me better or bitter. I remember this being a very conscious choice that I had to make. And I wanted to make me better. All of the experience I had gone through had to be done for some glory. There had to be something good out of all of this. And that's what I wanted to find. I wanted to find the goodness. I wanted me to be a better person. So in a sense, the last 6 years have been me making a new revised version of me, if you will.
And so where do you feel you are in your own journey now, Josephine? Are you there? Is there still healing? Is there moments when something pops up for you and you go, oh, I need to work something out here?
Right. I've come leaps and bounds from where I was 6, 7 years ago. I'm a completely different person, but I still feel like that I'm healing. There's always going to be triggers. I've done extensive counseling, and triggers don't go away. I might see someone who resembles my ex-husband or a vehicle that looks like the one that he had. So there's always going to be triggers. It's how I cope with those triggers now is much different because I have the tools now to handle those triggers, whereas I didn't have that 6 years ago.
You are an inspiration for me, for other women who are watching and listening. And I'm just so incredibly proud to be part of this conversation with you, because I know it's going to offer hope to other women. And so if there's a woman who's watching right now, who is not sure what she's living in, but she knows it isn't right, she's being hurt, what words of encouragement would you like to offer to her?
I did a great group, peer support group, and our slogan was empowered women, empowered women. And if I can empower just one woman today, she has strength and she can do this. And this is all worth it. There is amazing support out there. Ask, reach out. Women are very resilient and strong. And I'm telling you from my heart, 6 years ago, I did not think I had the strength or perseverance to be where I am today. Of course, I've got a great support network and a great team helping me. Ask for help. That is my suggestion.
Thank you so much for those words of wisdom, Josephine. And we hope that if you are a woman who's watching today and you're just curious and you want to ask some questions, no judgment, no shame. We're just here to help. Please call our crisis line at 728-2544, 24 hours a day. You can reach another woman on the phone that you can speak with, and we can help you unpack it. And we'll walk with you, and we're here to support you. So again, Josephine, thank you so much. To our community, please be well, please take care, and we will see you all again next time. Bye-bye.